Hi there, I'm Lance with Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are hard to master. And in this video, I'm going to be previewing the First Tsar, Ivan the Terrible. Now, this game was originally published by Hobby World. However, 25th Century Games sent me a preview copy in preparation for their crowdfunding campaign, so you'll want to check out the link down below in the description of this video after you watch it. So yeah, 25th Century Games is running a crowdfunding project for this game, trying to produce an English print run version of this game here in North America. And so I want to thank 25th Century Games for sending me this copy to check out and to put a preview video out there for them on this one. So what this is a game in which you are going to be playing as one of the political figures trying to impress Ivan the Terrible. And what you'll be doing in this game is you will be using area control, area majority, and a bidding mechanic in which you are going to be using money to beef up the influence of your political figures in this game and trying to have supremacy over different actions. This is an action selection bidding area majority control game. And with those different mechanics, the idea here is to own certain parts of the map for most victory points. You'll be trying to use your resources wisely in this game so that you can pay off different cards, completing different card contract fulfillment for, again, victory points. This is a Stan Kordonskiy game, and so if you are familiar with some of his other games, such as Rurik, this will be a game that will fall right in similar line with that particular game. A lot of similarities to that. However, this is going to have its own unique take on those kind of mechanics. So let's go down to the table where I'll show you how this one works in more detail, and then we'll come back and I'll share my thoughts on the First Tsar, Ivan the Terrible. All right, I have the First Tsar on the table. So let me show you this game. And I do want to make sure you understand that what you see here is prototype, so the final artwork components, maybe even some of the rules might change once it's released from crowdfunding. That being said, what you have for components, I can only fit so much of this board on frame. There's going to be this top half of the board that is a map, and then there's going to be this bottom portion of the board that is going to be where you're going to be placing your boyars or some of your workers. You also have lots of tokens, cubes in this game. You are going to have different cards. You are going to have more cardboard components. You are going to have lots of wooden painted meeples and buildings that you'll be playing with for each of the different players in the game. You do also have lots of resources. Now, you're going to have coins. You are going to have basic resources, and then you're going to have foreign goods, which are like your fancy resources, your better resources. So players are also going to have their own player board, and the player boards do have a little bit of color boarding on the outside edge here. This is the blue player's player board, and black player will have black, white will have white, red will have red. So that's what you have for components in this game. Now, how this game is going to play out, we're going to cover this in two different phases. The second phase will be played out here on this portion of the board. The first phase is going to be played down here on this portion of the board. So we're going to pan the camera over to this side right here. And I do want to point out that this game is going to be played over the course of 4 rounds. And after the first 2 rounds, you're going to have a scoring phase done in the middle of the game. And then after the last 2 rounds, you're going to have another scoring phase done. And in these 2 phases, that's where you're going to be getting a lot of points, but you will be gaining points throughout the course of the game as well. And as you can see, there's a score track that runs along the outside edge of the map of the board. Now, another really important portion of the game is going to be this track right here on the far right side of the board in your screen. This is going to be the influence track, and all ties are going to be broken based off of this influence track. Whoever is highest up here has more influence, and they're going to be more powerful throughout the course of the game. So you want to try to make sure that you're up here at the top of this track. Now, how this is going to work, starting with whatever player is to the left of the player that is at the bottom of this track, which in this case is going to be the white player. So whoever's sitting to their left, they are going to receive the first player token for that particular round in the game, and they will get the opportunity to place one of their boyars. You're going to have 3 boyars that are going to look like these guys, and all players are going to take turns, starting with that first player, placing one of their boyars into one of these 5 different chambers. Now, in addition to these 5 chambers, which are going to have their own actions, so this is action selection right here, there are also going to be different cards. You're going to shuffle these up and place at random 1 card under each of these different chambers, and this is going to influence where you'll be able to place your boyars out on the map in the second phase of a round, which is that part up at the top of the board. And there will always be 1 card left over that's not going to get down here, and so this is going to have some variability throughout each round. Again, starting with that first player, you'll place one of your boyars into one of the 5 different chambers. Now, you could just place the boyar in that chamber and that's it. However, you could also place the boyar with any number of your coins that you have to increase its influence in that particular chamber. And then it would be the next player's turn to place one of their boyars, and then the next, and let's say they do go here, and then let's say it's the red player's turn, and they want to place 3 coins underneath their boyar in that particular chamber. Once all players have placed all of their boyars, and again, everybody has 3, but I'm just going to place 1 for each player. Then, again, starting with the first player, they will pull off one of their boyars to do that particular action. So let's cover the different actions. Let's say I had a boyar here in this particular one. This means that up to 3 cities that I have workers on up at the top portion of that board, I will gain the resources that are printed on that particular city. I'll show you that here in just a minute. I'm not going to pull the board down to explain that, but just know that each city has some type of resource associated with it, which will either give me resources or money, or give me the option to pay money for other resources. So that's what this particular action is going to let me do. Now, this action here, let's say I have my worker here to take my worker off on that particular action, that is going to allow me 2 actions to either place one of my workers, which I'm going to have worker units that look like this, which are going to be important to gaining influence over a particular region, or I can move a worker that is already on the board to a connected city following one of the routes. And so I can do that twice using this action here. This particular action here is going to give me 2 actions to either take a card from the market or play a card that I have completed that's in my hand. So there are going to be cards, and you'll start the game with a certain number of these cards, but there's going to be a small market of 6 cards available that are going to come in 3 different varieties. You've got the white, the blue, and the red. And what you'll be doing with these cards is trying to have a number of resources that's printed on the left, and when you have those resources, you can take this action to play a card, paying the resources on the left to gain what is printed on the right, which are going to be typically victory points, and in this case, building one of your towns. Players are going to have town pieces that you can place on cities that don't already have buildings built in them, and that's going to give you 2 points of influence in that particular region. Whereas the blue cards are going to allow you to not only gain points, but also activate 2 spots on your player board where you have particular actions that you could do. And you've got spots here to gain more actions. I'll cover that here in just a minute, but you can activate these actions either gaining resources, money, or victory points. And so that's what the blue cards are going to let you do. The red cards are going to give you victory points, but they're also going to allow you to place one of your workers at the front lines of the war, which will gain you a boon. That'll gain you some sort of positive thing. In addition to whoever has the most workers over on that portion of the board, they're going to get even more victory points. Whoever has second most will get a lesser value of victory points, and everybody else won't get any victory points. So these cards are contract fulfillment. Again, you get 2 actions here. Taking one from the market could be an action. Playing a card that you have the resources for could be another action. You could do both of those things for both of your actions actions, or do it twice, one of the things twice as your 2 actions. So that's what this third option is going to be. This fourth option over here is the trading option, where you can turn any 2 goods into one other type of good. And as you can see here, that could be turning these basic resources into the fancy resources right here. And you can do this any number of times as you want. You could also turn things into coins. That's what the coin purse there is for. This fifth action over here, this is going to allow you to take the other cards that are in the game, your estate and title cards. So these cards right here, they're going to have this icon on it, and it's going to give you a way to earn victory points at the scoring portions of the game, which again are after the 2nd round and the 4th round when the game is going to end. So this particular one says it'll give you 2 points for each of your white cards that you've completed, each of your reds, each of your blues, so on and so forth. And so these are just ways to earn extra points at those scoring portions of the game. There'll be a small market of these available each round. They're first come, first served. They do not refill, which is different than these cards. These cards do refill. Now, the other type of card, the one that has the windmill icon on it, is going to give you an extra thing that you could do for free on your turn, tapping this card, gaining whatever is on it, and you can do this once per round. So these are nice to get early on in the game, as you can use them up to 4 times, because there are 4 rounds in the game, to gain whatever is the ability on the card. Pay a coin to get one of the silk resources, which is really nice. Pay a coin to gain 2 grain and a wood. So you get the idea. Having these can be a nice benefit to you through the course of the round. Now let's talk about the influence factor on this and why these actions are so important when you want to use influence on them. Because whoever has the greatest level of influence in a action has the option to place one of their seals. You have 2 different seal tokens, so you can do this twice per round. And if you have the highest influence at that time when you're pulling a worker off that action, you could place your seal to be able to do the bonus action in addition to the common actions associated with that spot. But it's only the player who has the highest influence, which if all workers are equal, so if let's say there was no money under any of those workers, then this would go off of the influence track over here, which in this case is me. I'm blue. I could do this. But because we have coins involved, it's whoever's going to have the highest number of coins, or again, if there was an equality here, then again, that tie is going to be broken based off of this. Now, if I pull my worker off of that and I choose not to place my seal on there, well, now it could go to the red player because they have the highest influence in that area. So timing does matter when you're pulling workers off of these actions when you want to try to place your seal for the different action in that area. Now, after you've pulled a worker off and you've done your action, you're going to look at the card that's below it, and the color of city below that, if there is a city, tells you where you have to place this boyer out on the main board. So in this case, I can only place in a red city, and you'll see that here in just a second. Do note that there is one card in these 6 cards that does not have a city on it, and if you take the basic action, you'll just gain one of the money, the coins, and if you are placing your seal, then you will not get the coin, but instead you'll get the increase in influence. This icon right here says that you go to the top of the influence track. You bump everybody down, and if you were already at the top of the track, then you'll just gain a victory point. So that's what that icon means. Now, that is the first portion of a round. You're taking turns placing your boyers out, putting any money underneath them when you place them out if you want to, and then again, following turn order, pulling off one of your workers, taking the action, deciding if you want or can place your seal to get the bonus action, and putting them out on the map. So now let's go up to the top portion of this board to show you what you will be doing in the second half of a round. So this is the area majority part of the game, and there are going to be 4 different regions on the board: north, south, east, west. And there are going to be lots of different cities. And as you can see, cities have different colors. So this is where that color on the card comes into effect. This red one means I have to place my boyer in one of the red cities. How the influence in this is all going to work: your boyers and your workers, are going to give you 1 point of influence, whereas your buildings are going to give you 2 points of influence. And whoever has the most influence up here in each of the 5 different regions will get first dibs on picking one of the 2 options at the end of the round. In this case, whoever has the most in the south region is going to gain one of every resource, one of every basic resource, or 4 victory points. Whoever has second most influence in this area gets the other that the person did not pick that had the most influence. Now again, if there are ties, it is going to be broken by this track that's down here. So again, you want to be high on this track. You don't want to be on the bottom of that track for too long. So that's the idea with the area majority, but let's talk about the other things that are on this board. As you can see, I mentioned that every city has a resource associated with it, and when you're taking that action of giving yourself resources from 3 different cities where you have a worker at, that's where you're gaining on it, or you're gaining the option to pay money for a resource. Now, when you take that action to be able to either place workers out on the board or move them, when you are moving them across one of these lines, there's going to be these trade tokens. And these trade tokens are going to, once you've gained one, this is going to go on your player board. And at the beginning, you'll place them on these empty spots, but throughout the course of the game, you might want to cover up some of the other spots that are printed on your board. And when you complete one of those blue cards that I showed you earlier that has that icon on it, it's allowing you to activate one of the spots that you have on your board, gaining resources or victory points. And so that's what these tokens are going to do for you. Note that at the second, after the end of the second round, you are going to place out more of these tokens, replacing the ones that are out here or the ones that have already been taken. So there's going to be more out there that refreshes the board. Now, I mentioned that on one of those actions, you are or one of the icons in the game is going to have you place workers out on the battlefield, at the front lines of the battlefield. So how that's going to work is you'll take one of your workers from your supply, placing it over here in this area, and you'll gain the boons on one of these tokens that are out here. And there'll be more tokens in higher player count games, but you do have a large stack of tokens, so there's lots of variability with the setup and how this all shakes out. But first come, first serve here. You might take this to boost yourself up on that influence track, or you might gain resources, or you might take cards from that small market of cards that I talked about earlier. Whoever has the most over here at the end of the second and fourth round are going to gain 4 points. Ties broken by that influence track I showed you, whoever has second most will gain 2 points. So that's how this all works out. And that's pretty much the gist of the game. So I'm going to pan back down here to show you that this track right here keeps track of the different rounds, and you'll be placing out different, whoops, that's not supposed to go there. You're going to be placing out different stacks of these types of tiles. Whoops, let me get the right one. Goodness, where is it at? There you go. You'll get different tiles here to put in the different regions that are going to be those awards for whoever has the most influence and second most influence. So this shakes up what the different regions of the board pays out with. That adds variability in the game. But then at the end of the game, there's going to be these ones that have the darker background on them, and those are going to give even higher influences or higher rewards. And so there'll be more competition for those at the end of the game. That's what's going to happen with these different tokens. And then at the end of the game, you will be able to cash in your leftover resources for victory points. The fancier ones, the foreign goods, are going to cash out at a higher rate than the basic goods. So you do want to try to have resources at the end of the game, in addition to all the points that you've earned throughout the course of the game. And obviously, whoever has the most points at the end of the game is going to be the winner. And that is how you play the First Tsar, Ivan the Terrible. Let's go back up top and I'll share my thoughts on this one. Okay, so let's get to my thoughts on First Tsar. Now, I do want to start off by letting you know what I think about the spiritual successor or predecessor to this particular game, which is Rurik Dawn of Kiev, which is Stan Kordonskiy's other game. And that is a game that I absolutely love. Really enjoy the different mechanics in that one. Enjoy how the auctioning or really kind of, yeah, it's like a bidding auctioning kind of system with the different workers. And that's got some similarities to what you see here in this game. It's a flashier game. It's a game that has a bit more table presence out on the table. Highly produced, well-polished game. And I feel like Stan took a lot of the things that I love about that game and streamlined it into a simpler game, maybe a more old school feeling kind of game, not as flashy, but definitely a game that seems to be more easily approachable, let's call it, for majority of gamers than Rurik was. Rurik was a game that could be very punishing if you did not play well, if you did not make great moves. It would punish you, and you would probably not be able to catch up. This is I wouldn't say it's a more forgiving game necessarily, but it is definitely a game that is more approachable for most gamers. Now, that's not to say that this is an easy to master kind of game. You can definitely still make mistakes in this game. However, this is a game in which there are opportunities to score points. And so if you don't control different regions of the board, that's not going to kill you in this game, unlike a lot of area majority kind of games or area control kind of games. This is not high conflict necessarily. In fact, there's not hardly any conflict other than that you are just trying to have a majority of figures in a particular region, and people are going to compete with you in that. But you're not wiping people off of the map necessarily. This isn't going to be a game in which you lay down the bomb card that blows people up. This isn't that kind of area majority, and so because of that, this is a more approachable version of area control, area majority. That might not be for some people who really like that high conflict. This is more Euro game. This is more manage your resources, plan 3 or 4, 5 turns ahead, get to certain cards before other people get to them first. So there is competition in that. There's player interaction in that. But as far as the actual conflict goes, there's not going to be much of that going on in this game. What do I really like about this one? Well, so for me, the highlight of this game is going to be the way the workers work. Just like it was in Rurik, that was really a unique and fresh take on your workers and being able to make workers more valuable than others or more important than others. This is going to have that as well, with that bidding system, placing coins underneath your workers to increase their influence. And really what's really nice about this is how it unfolds throughout the course of a round. You're going to have turn order be a huge factor in this, and it's not great to be first in turn order. If you're going later in turn order, you get to see where people are putting their workers. That's going to help you to influence what you want to do with your workers, what you want to do with your money in this game as you beef up some workers or you choose not to. But seeing that unfold is really interesting. It's a compelling part of the game. Not only that, but then choosing the order in which you pull off your workers to do their actions is very compelling as well, because the workers come out a certain way after everybody goes through their turns, but then if this player over here pulls off a worker in an area in which I didn't think that I would be able to gain supremacy over because of the way it looked, but then maybe it shakes out that now I can, that's really interesting. That's a cool concept that can happen. Or if I'm not careful, I might be giving that to someone else and allow them extra moves or extra bonuses because of that. So I really want to think that through wisely. There's some of the areas in which you can make pitfalls in this happen, or not necessarily pitfalls, but you can give boons to other players and that not be something that you want to do. So those parts of the turn are really compelling, really interesting to me. Lots of decision space in that. And then when you put your workers out on the map, trying to control different regions on the board, but then also thinking about where those workers are going to get you resources if you take that action to collect resources from cities you control on the map. That's an interesting part of the game as well. So there's a lot to think about in that regard. And then the rest of the game is like your classic area control, where you just want to have more people in certain regions than anybody else. And that's a fun aspect too. Feels like a classic area control kind of game. So I love the way those two things are blended together. It's a very smooth process. From the very first time I played this game, very first time reading through the rule book, there were only small details, small little nuances of needing to kind of maybe reference back to the rule book. The vast majority of this game was was picked up very easily from the jump start. And so this is a smooth process, doesn't feel clunky, doesn't feel like just different mechanics trying to throw them all in together to make a unique game. No, this is blended together very well. And I love how the worker, not worker placement, but worker bidding kind of process bleeds into the trying to control different portions of the map. That to me felt a very smooth process. The thing though that I think that really kind of takes it up another notch though is just how tight the resource management is in this game, and that you have your basic resources and your fancy resources, your high class resources, and that you know, you really need to manage both of those well, because you're not going to get an overabundance of resources in this game, or at least I haven't found that to be the case in my playthrough of it. What I found to be the case is that you are you know, you're getting by the skin of your teeth with your resources. I have just enough to be able to pay off this card, and you know, or I have just enough to be able to trade these in so that I can have the coin that I need to be able to then beef up this worker. That's very compelling. That very interesting concept of the game to me makes me feel like I really need to be on top of my game if I want to be able to play as best as I can. Feel like that is a great little level of complexity with the game that doesn't make it feel like I'm having to work extremely too hard to be able to get my points in this one, but it's also not so forgiving that it doesn't feel like I'm working at all. Really enjoy that aspect of the game. To give you an idea, if you've never watched any of these videos here on Hard to Master, Love to Hate, I'm not somebody who is here for the most complex game. I'm not typically one playing those 4 to 5 on the BGG weight kind of games. I do really enjoy the 3 to 4 range. That's kind of my sweet spot, and I feel like this hits that for me. Definitely not a game that I would be playing with Sam, my wife, on the Love to Hate side of this channel. If you're not familiar with that, that's where we look at games that work well for gamers and non-gamers. I do think this is going to be a little too heavy for that particular crowd. However, I think this is the perfect kind of game that can work both for your hardcore heavy gamers, might be a little light for them, but also your medium weight gamers, that this is going to be perfect for them. So this is going to be the perfect kind of game to play with somebody who's maybe really into gaming, just not huge into area control, or really into gaming but maybe has never played area control, never played that bidding kind of aspect with bidding for action selection, trying to have that game play out, that meta gaming of trying to figure out where are you going to go on your next turn, and are you going to use your best worker, or are you going to use all your coins to beef up that worker, that aspect of a game. This is a perfect kind of introduction to that, or not even introduction, because it's still meaty. It still feels like it has a big decision space. So this is going to be the perfect kind of game that somebody can sink their teeth into and really feel like they're getting a lot of gaming experience out of it. So I really enjoy this one. I really enjoy a lot of the games that Stan Kordonskiy has been coming out with here lately. First Tsar is going to be another big hit, I feel like. So definitely check out the campaign that 25th Century Games is going to be putting on for this one. We've got a link for that down below in the description of this video, so you want to check that out. Check out all the details about what they will be offering with this particular one. If you like this video, please, please, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified of all of our great new content. I'm Lance, and this is Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are hard to master. We'll catch you next time.